Hi, guys. Tonight, we begin a journey into a world that exists in the quiet spaces between the heavy tapestries of time. We're going back to a period where the sun was considered an enemy to the refined, and where beauty was measured by the pale, ethereal glow of the moonlight reflected in a woman's skin. Before we wander into the dim, candlelit corridors of the medieval manor, I would love it if you just take a moment to subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. It really helps these stories reach those who need a bit of quiet at the end of a long day. And I'm curious, where are you right now? Is the world outside your window dark and still, or are you finding a moment of peace in the middle of a busy city? Let me know in the comments. I read them all, and your presence here means a lot to me. Now, settle in. Let your shoulders relax. Let the weight of the day fade away. Let's talk about the ghostly glow. Imagine, if you will, a wide, rolling landscape in the heart of the 13th century. The sun is high, beating down on the golden wheat fields, and the air is thick with the scent of earth and honest labor. In this world, the sun was a mark of the masses. To be tanned, to have skin kissed by the heat of the afternoon, was to tell the world that you belonged to the fields. It meant your hands were calloused, and your days were spent under the unyielding sky. But inside the stone walls of the castle, in the shadows of the great halls, a different standard was being born. A standard of stillness. A standard of the indoors. The elite didn't want the sun. They wanted the moon. For a noblewoman of this era, her skin was her canvas, and that canvas had to be as white as the finest linen from Flanders. This wasn't just about vanity, it was about identity. A pale face was a silent proclamation. It said, "I do not toil." It said, "I have never felt the harshness of the harvest." It was the ultimate luxury, the luxury of being fragile. To achieve this ghostly glow, this translucent perfection, the rituals were long, and often, quite strange. Imagine a young woman sitting by a small, leaded glass window. The light is soft. She isn't looking for a tan, she is hiding from it. Even a few minutes of direct sunlight was seen as a tragedy, a blemish on her social standing. They called it the lily look. The lily was the flower of the Virgin Mary, symbolizing purity, innocence, and a certain divine detachment from the world. To look like a lily, you had to be white, almost unnaturally so. But nature, as we know, doesn't always provide such a stark palette. And so, the medieval lady turned to the apothecary, and to the secrets passed down through generations. Some methods were gentle. A wash of cold milk in the morning, or the application of crushed cucumbers to soothe the skin. These were the quiet rituals of the morning, the soft splashing of water in a pewter bowl, the cool touch of damp cloth against the forehead. But as the centuries progressed, the desire for whiteness became an obsession. And this is where the story takes a darker turn. In the pursuit of the ghostly glow, the ingredients became more industrial. Have you ever thought about the weight of lead? It's heavy, cold, and gray. Yet, when processed into a fine powder, it becomes a brilliant, opaque white. Ceruse. That was the name of the magic dust. It was a mixture of white lead and vinegar. It promised a complexion that was perfectly even, perfectly smooth, and perfectly white. Imagine the application. A slow, methodical process. Brushing the white paste over the forehead, down the bridge of the nose, over the cheeks. It covered everything. Every freckle, every vein, every sign of life. It turned the human face into a mask of marble. In the flickering light of a tallow candle, a woman wearing ceruse would look like a ghost. Her skin would catch the light in a way that seemed supernatural. But beneath the surface, the lead was doing its work. It was a slow poison. It ate away at the skin it was meant to beautify, causing sores, and eventually, a deeper, more permanent paleness that no one desired. Yet, they continued. Because in the medieval mind, beauty was worth the sacrifice. To be beautiful was to be closer to the divine. It was to be a living piece of art. Think of the silence of those rooms. The rustle of a heavy wool skirt, the crackle of a dying fire, and the quiet reflection of a woman looking into a mirror made of polished silver. She isn't looking for herself, she is looking for the ideal. She is erasing her humanity to become a symbol. There was also the use of sublimate, a concoction involving mercury. It was used to peel the skin, to remove the top layer and reveal the raw, pale skin beneath. It was painful. It was dangerous. But the result, for a few brief days, was a glow that looked like it belonged to an angel. We often think of the Middle Ages as a time of dirt and grime, of unwashed masses and mud-streaked faces. And for many, it was. But for the few, the world was a theater of artifice. The castle wasn't just a fortress, it was a gallery. And the people inside were the exhibits. The ghostly glow extended beyond just the face. The neck, the chest, the hands, all had to match. Gloves were worn indoors, not for warmth, but to protect the hands from the air. Long sleeves draped over the fingers. Everything was shielded. There is a certain peace in imagining this level of stillness. No rushing to meetings, no staring at screens, just the slow, rhythmic application of creams and powders. The world outside was violent and loud, but inside the chamber, time slowed down. The air smelled of dried lavender and old stone. As you lay there, imagine the cool touch of a marble floor, the way the shadows stretch across a tapestry during the golden hour. The sun is setting now, and the ghostly glow becomes even more pronounced. In the twilight, these women didn't just walk, they glided. Their white faces catching the very last of the blue light, making them appear as if they were made of mist. This was the beginning of the journey, the foundation of beauty. A rejection of the sun, a rejection of the earth, and a longing for something ethereal. But the face was only the start. To truly achieve the medieval ideal, one had to look higher. One had to look at the very shape of the head, and the strange, quiet art of the forehead. But that is a story for the next chapter. For now, just breathe. Feel the coolness of the air. Let the image of the white lily stay in your mind. Still, silent, pale. The world of the 14th century is fading now. The candles are being blown out, one by one. The lead and the vinegar are put away. The silk veils are drawn. And in the darkness, the ghostly glow remains, a memory of a time when beauty was a quiet, dangerous, and hauntingly still pursuit. Stay here for a moment. In the quiet. In the pale light. We move deeper now, leaving behind the soft wash of morning milk and the simple desire for paleness, and entering the world of the alchemist's laboratory. If the first step of beauty was avoiding the sun, the second step was more deliberate, more calculated, and far more dangerous. Welcome to the era of the poisoned palette. Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine the dressing table of a highborn lady in the year 1380. It isn't a table of plastic and glass like we see today. It is made of dark, heavy oak, scarred by time, and on it sit small, hand-blown glass vials, ceramic jars sealed with wax, and tiny silver spoons. The air in this room doesn't smell of synthetic flowers. It smells of vinegar, of metallic dust, and of something sharp, something that catches in the back of your throat. You see, to achieve the ultimate ghostly glow we spoke of earlier, simple avoidance of the sun was often not enough. The skin is a living thing, it has flaws, it has warmth. But the medieval ideal was not life, it was perfection. And perfection, in their eyes, looked like cold, unblemished stone. To reach this state, they turned to a substance called ceruse. White lead. Think about that for a second. Lead. A metal so heavy, so dense. The alchemists knew its power, but the ladies of the court only knew its color. When lead is exposed to the fumes of strong vinegar in a closed space, it undergoes a transformation. It blooms, like a toxic flower, into a crust of brilliant, opaque white flakes. These flakes were ground down, slowly, rhythmically, with a mortar and pestle. Scrape, scrape, scrape. The sound echoing in the quiet chamber. The resulting powder was as fine as silk, and as white as a cloud. When mixed with a bit of water or rose oil, it became a thick paste. Imagine the sensation of applying this to your face. It would feel cold, heavy, almost like a second skin. A mask. As it dried, it filled every pore, smoothed every fine line, and erased every freckle that might have dared to appear. It gave the wearer a look of eternal youth, but it was a deceptive youth. Because beneath that white mask, the poison was beginning its work. Lead doesn't just sit on the skin. It waits. It seeps. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into years, the very makeup that made a woman look like an angel was slowly destroying her. It would cause the skin to wither, to turn a grayish, sickly hue. And what did they do when their skin began to look gray? They applied more lead. A thicker layer. A heavier mask. It was a cycle of beauty and decay, a slow dance with a ghost. But lead wasn't the only color on this poisoned palette. There was also the matter of the eyes. If you were to look into the eyes of a medieval noblewoman, you might notice something strange. Her pupils would be wide, dark, and shimmering, even in the brightest light. This wasn't natural. This was the work of belladonna. The name itself means beautiful lady in Italian. But belladonna is also known as deadliest nightshade. A single drop in each eye would cause the pupils to dilate, creating a look of intense, dreamy longing. It made the woman look as though she were permanently in a state of wonder, or perhaps a state of trance. But the price of this gaze was high. The vision would blur. The heart would race. And eventually, if used too long, the world would fade into a permanent darkness. Blindness, for the sake of a beautiful stare. Take a deep breath now. Feel the stillness of your own room. You are safe from these toxins. You are just a traveler in time, observing the lengths to which humanity will go to reach an impossible dream. As we sit in this candlelit room, we see the lady reaching for another jar. This one contains a vibrant, startling red. This is cinnabar. It was used to paint the lips and the center of the cheeks, a sharp contrast against the lead-white skin. But cinnabar is made of mercury. Imagine mercury on the lips. Every time she spoke, every time she ate, a tiny bit of this liquid metal entered her system. It brought with it tremors, a metallic taste in the mouth, and a clouding of the mind. The medieval palate was a minefield of elements. Lead, mercury, arsenic. They were painting their faces with the very things that the earth uses to warn us of danger. But why? Why did they continue? Perhaps it was because life itself was so fragile then. When death could come at any moment from a fever or a cold, perhaps the danger of your makeup seemed small. Or perhaps, to be beautiful was to be powerful. In a world where women had so little control, the ability to transform oneself into a living icon was a form of sovereignty. The boring truth of history is often found in these slow, repetitive actions. The hours spent sitting still while the lead paste dried. The careful, trembling hand as the mercury red was applied to the lips. The silence of the dressing room, broken only by the drip of a candle or the distant tolling of a church bell. There was no rush. There was no 5-minute makeup routine. This was a ritual of hours. It was a form of meditation, albeit a dangerous one. As the sun begins to dip below the horizon of our medieval landscape, the colors on the palette change. In the dim light, the lead-white skin begins to glow with a bluish tint. The mercury-red lips look almost black. The dilated pupils drink in what little light remains. The woman becomes a statue, a masterpiece of chemistry and courage. Think of the patience required. To move your face as little as possible so the lead doesn't crack. To speak in low, measured tones. To exist as a vessel for these heavy metals. It is a heavy thought, isn't it? The weight of beauty. The literal weight of the lead on the skin, and the metaphorical weight of the cost. But as we watch her, we see her smile, just a little. A slow, careful movement. She is satisfied. For this evening, she is the ideal. She is the ghost in the hall. She is the lily in the garden of thorns. Let the sound of my voice be the only thing you focus on now. The toxins are gone. The lead has turned back to dust. The mercury has evaporated into the mists of time. All that remains is the story. The quiet, boring, repetitive story of a palette that was as beautiful as it was deadly. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the colors fading. The white turns to gray, the red turns to shadow, the dark pupils close at last. The palette is closed. The brushes are laid down. The room is dark now. The only light comes from the dying embers in the hearth. The air is cooling. The heavy oak table is still. Sleep now, knowing that the pursuit of perfection is a long, winding road, and you have traveled far enough for one night. In the next chapter, we will look at how this pale, painted face was framed, and how the very hair on one's head was treated as a garden to be pruned. But for now, there is only the silence. There is only the peace. There is only the dream of the poisoned palette, fading into the mist. The room is even quieter now, the air is still, and the heavy incense has settled into the corners of the stone chamber. We have seen the white mask of lead, we have felt the weight of the poisoned palette, but now we must look closer. We must look beneath the surface. Welcome to the delicate, strange, and silent world of the painted veins. As you lie there, let your breathing slow down. Imagine a hand, pale and steady, resting on a silk cushion. In the Middle Ages, to be truly beautiful, it wasn't enough to simply be white. Total whiteness could look like a wall, like a piece of uncarved chalk. But the noble ideal was to look fragile, to look as though your skin were made of the finest, most translucent porcelain. They wanted to show that their skin was so thin, so delicate, that the life force beneath it was almost visible to the naked eye. But nature is often too robust for such fantasies. Our skin is designed to protect us, to be thick and resilient. And so, when the skin was too healthy, or the lead powder too opaque, the medieval artist in the mirror had to intervene. Picture a tiny, slender brush, made from the softest squirrel hair. And beside it, a small seashell containing a pigment of the purest blue. Lapis lazuli, ground into a dust so fine it floats on the air, or perhaps a delicate indigo. With a hand that does not tremble, the lady or her attendant begins the ritual. They are not painting a picture on a canvas. They are tracing the map of a human soul. Slowly, the brush dips into the blue. Slowly, it touches the temple. A thin, faint line is drawn. It follows the curve of the bone, weaving through the white ceruse, appearing like a river of ice flowing through a snowy field. This was the art of the vein. They would trace these faint blue lines across the forehead, down the side of the neck, and most importantly, across the tops of the hands and the chest. Why? Because in the 14th century, these visible veins were the ultimate proof of nobility. They called it blue blood. The idea was that the blood of a peasant was thick, dark, and hidden by the tan of the sun. But the blood of a queen? Her blood was royal, her blood was celestial, it was blue. And it was so refined that it could not be contained, it had to show through her parchment-like skin. Can you imagine the stillness required for this? To sit for an hour while a servant traces these tiny, intricate webs across your skin? The world outside might be in chaos, there might be wars, or cold winters, but inside this circle of candlelight, there is only the brush, and the blue, and the silence. It is a boring kind of beauty. It is a beauty of details that no one would notice from a distance. It was a beauty meant for the person standing right next to you, or for the person looking at you in the dim light of a cathedral. It was a secret language of status. As you listen to the sound of my voice, imagine that blue brush moving over your own skin. It is light as a feather. It feels cool. It creates a sense of detachment, as if you are becoming a statue, a work of art that doesn't need to breathe, or move, or worry. The blue lines were like the illuminations in a medieval manuscript. You've seen those books, haven't you? The ones with the gold leaf and the deep blue ink? The medieval woman's face was becoming her own illuminated book. A story of wealth, of leisure, and of a life lived entirely away from the harsh realities of the world. But there is a paradox here. To look alive with veins, they used the colors of the dead. The blue of a bruise, the white of a ghost. They were chasing a look that was almost sickly. Because in those times, to be robust was to be common. To look as though you might faint at any moment, that was the height of grace. Think of the patience of the artist. If the line was too thick, it looked like a stain. If it was too dark, it looked like a scar. It had to be a whisper. A suggestion. Drip, drip. A water clock marks the passing of the hour. The sun has moved across the sky, and the shadows in the room have grown longer. The lady hasn't moved. Her neck is stiff, her eyes are tired, but she is nearly finished. She looks in her polished silver mirror. The reflection is distorted, wavy, like looking through water. But she sees them. The faint blue rivers on her temples. The delicate webbing on the back of her hands. She looks fragile. She looks expensive. She looks perfect. In the quiet of the afternoon, this was the work of the elite. While the rest of the world was grinding grain, or mending fences, or washing clothes in the river, the noblewoman was perfecting the art of being still. There is a rhythm to this history, a slow, repeating loop. Every morning, the white. Every morning, the blue. Every morning, the mask. It is the repetitive nature of this life that brings us peace now. The knowledge that for hundreds of years, this was the slow pace of the day. No one was in a hurry. The paint had to dry. The brush had to be cleaned. The veins had to be perfect. Feel the weight of your limbs now. Let them be as heavy as the stone walls of a castle. Let your mind be as quiet as the lady's chamber. The blue ink is dry now. The ritual is over. We often wonder what they talked about during these hours. Perhaps nothing at all. Perhaps they just listened to the wind in the chimney, or the sound of a distant lute. Perhaps they simply drifted, just as you are drifting now, into a state where the world outside no longer matters. The art of painted veins reminds us that beauty has always been a construction. It's a layer we put on, a story we tell ourselves. And in the Middle Ages, that story was one of ice, and blue, and silence. As we prepare to leave this chapter, take one last look at the lady. She is a vision of marble and sapphire. She is a ghost of her own making. And she is ready for the evening. But our journey through the medieval mirror is not yet done. To complete the image, she must address the frame. She must look at the hair, or rather, the lack of it. She must consider the forehead, that vast, empty space of intelligence and grace. But that is for the next time we speak. For now, let the blue lines fade into the darkness of the night. Let the white lead dissolve into the shadows. The brush is laid down. The seashell is empty. The room is silent. Sleep now, drifting on those blue rivers, back into the depths of time. Back into the quiet. Back into the dream. We have explored the white mask of the skin and the delicate blue rivers of the veins, but now we must look upward to the crowning glory of the medieval face. Except, in the 14th century, glory wasn't found in the hair, but in its absence. Welcome to the era of the expansive forehead. Close your eyes and imagine a high, vaulted ceiling in a stone cathedral. The space is vast, empty, and silent. To the medieval mind, this emptiness was where the divine resided. And they believed the human face should reflect that same spiritual vastness. In this world, a low hairline was a sign of the common, the unrefined. It was thought that a small forehead belonged to those who lived only by their instincts, like the animals in the forest. But a large, smooth, and high forehead? That was the mark of intelligence, of nobility, and of a soul that looked toward heaven. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the stillness of the air around you. Imagine the lady again. She is sitting by her mirror. But today, she does not reach for the white lead or the blue pigment. Today, she reaches for a pair of small, iron tweezers. or perhaps a linen cloth soaked in a mixture of quicklime and orpiment. The goal is simple, but the process is slow. Painfully slow. She begins at the natural hairline, right at the top of her brow. And one by one, hair by hair, she begins to pluck. Snap, snap, snap. The tiny sound of the tweezers is the only thing breaking the silence of the room. She is moving the boundary of her face. She is pushing back the hair, inch by inch, until the forehead becomes a wide, sweeping plain of pale skin. Sometimes, she will pluck until the hairline starts at the very top of her head, almost where a crown would sit. It is a ritual of patience. It is a ritual of endurance. To us, it sounds like a chore. But to her, it is a transformation. She is uncovering her intellectual self. She is making room for her thoughts to breathe. As you listen, imagine that sensation of space. Imagine your own forehead becoming smooth, clear, and open. The tension in your brow begins to melt away. All those worries you've been carrying, all those lines of stress, they are being erased. In the medieval world, even the eyebrows were not safe from this quest for space. A thick brow was considered distracting, too earthy. And so, they were plucked away entirely. Or at least, thinned until they were nothing more than a faint, ghostly arc. The face was becoming a blank slate. An oval of pure, white, moon-like serenity. If the tweezers were too slow, there were other, more boring methods. There were pastes made from the blood of bats, or the ashes of burnt hedgehogs, mixed with vinegar. They believed these strange concoctions would stop the hair from ever growing back. Imagine the lady sitting there, the heavy scent of vinegar and herbs filling the room, while the paste sits on her forehead. She cannot move. She must remain perfectly still for hours. This stillness is what we are looking for tonight. The ability to just be. To exist in a moment where nothing is required of you but to wait. Think of the silence of the castle in the mid-afternoon. The servants are busy in the kitchens, the knights are away at the hunt, and here, in the solar, the sunbeams are dancing with the dust motes. Everything is suspended in time. When the plucking was finished, and the hairline was high and proud, the skin was polished. They used smooth stones or fine oils to make the forehead shine. It had to catch the light, just like the marble statues in the church. It made the eyes look larger. It made the face look longer, more elegant, more ethereal. She no longer looked like a person of the earth. She looked like a being made of light and thought. But this look required a frame. The hair that remained was never left to hang loose and wild. That was for children. That was for the unkempt. No. The hair was braided tightly, wound into coils over the ears, or tucked into elaborate silken nets called cauls. It was compressed, hidden, and disciplined. Everything was designed to emphasize that high, pale, sweeping forehead. Imagine the weight of the hair being pinned up. The feeling of the scalp being pulled tight, smooth, and firm. It creates a sense of focus. A sense of being held. As you drift deeper into your pillow, think about that vastness. A forehead like a quiet lake at dawn. No ripples. No movement. Just a clear, open surface reflecting the sky. This was the medieval, high fashion. It was a look that commanded respect without saying a word. When a woman with such a forehead walked into a room, she looked like she held the secrets of the universe. We spend so much of our lives trying to fill our heads with information, with noise, with images. But the medieval ideal was about clearing space. It was about the beauty of the nothingness at the top of the face. Let your mind find that same space now. Clear away the clutter of your day. Push back the hairline of your thoughts. Let there be a wide, calm, open area where nothing needs to happen. The tweezers are put back in their velvet-lined box. The vinegar paste is washed away with cool rose water. The lady looks at herself one last time. Her face is an oval of moonlight. Her brow is a monument to her status. The work is done. The ritual of the expansive forehead is complete. She feels lighter, somehow, as if the removal of those tiny hairs has removed a weight from her soul. She is ready to wear the heavy gold headdresses, the towering hennons that we will talk about later. Because she has built the foundation. The shadows in your room are growing longer now, just as they did in hers. The castle is settling into the quiet of the evening. The fire in the hearth is nothing but a soft, orange glow. Listen to the rhythm of your heart. Slow, steady, calm. You are traveling through a history that doesn't ask anything of you. You don't need to remember these dates. You don't need to visualize the names. You only need to feel the stillness. The pale, high forehead remains in the mind's eye, a symbol of a time when beauty was a slow, deliberate construction of space. Sleep now, in that open space. Sleep now, in the silence of the high brow. But as she turns from the mirror, something else catches the light. Something on her cheek. A touch of color, hidden, forbidden, yet necessary. But that is a story for the next chapter. For now, there is only the vastness. There is only the peace. There is only the dream. The ritual of the forehead is complete, but the transformation of the upper face has only just begun. As the lady looks into her silver mirror, she sees the vast expanse of her brow, but something still feels too earthly, too human. Her eyes are framed by arches of hair, those expressive, moving lines we call eyebrows. In the High Middle Ages, these were seen as a distraction from the soul. Welcome to the silent world of the eyebrowless aesthetic. Close your eyes, and let the weight of your eyelids become heavy. Imagine a face that is as smooth as a river stone, polished by centuries of water. In our modern world, we spend so much time shaping, darkening, and defining our brows. But in the year 1400, the goal was the exact opposite. The goal was disappearance. An eyebrow, you see, is a tool of emotion. It scowls, it questions, it expresses surprise. But a noblewoman was expected to be above such fleeting feelings. She was to be a portrait of serene detachment. And so, the eyebrows had to go. Take a long, slow breath in. And let it out. Imagine the lady reaching for a small porcelain jar. Inside is a substance that looks innocent, but carries the sharp tang of the alchemist's shop. It might be a paste made of quicklime, or perhaps a mixture where orpiment, a form of arsenic, is the secret ingredient. She does not flinch. She knows that beauty is a slow, quiet sacrifice. With a steady finger, she applies the paste to the arches of her brows. It feels warm, perhaps a bit tingly against the skin. She must sit in perfect stillness while the chemicals do their work. Think of the silence in that room. The only sound is the distant, rhythmic thud of a woodcutter's axe far outside the castle walls. Thud, thud, thud. Inside, time has stopped. The lady is waiting for her face to change. She is not just removing hair, she is removing the animal from her expression. Without eyebrows, the eyes become large, vulnerable, and strangely divine. They no longer look like human eyes, but like the eyes of an angel in a stained glass window. Wide, unblinking, and full of a quiet, eternal peace. If the chemical pastes were too harsh, there were other, more tedious ways. The tweezers return. Pluck, pluck, pluck. Imagine the repetitive motion. The tiny pinch of the skin, the release, the silence. It is a form of meditation. To remove every single hair until the skin is as bare as the palm of a hand. It takes hours. It takes a kind of patience that we have forgotten in our fast-paced world. As you listen to my voice, feel the area around your own eyes relax. Let the muscles in your brow soften. Imagine all the tension of your expressions, the frowns of worry, the squints of concentration, just fading away. Your face is becoming a smooth, open landscape. There is a strange, haunting beauty in this emptiness. When the brows are gone, the light of the candles catches the brow bone in a new way. There are no shadows cast by hair. The face becomes a vessel for light. Sometimes, the remedies were even stranger. The ancient texts suggested rubbing the area with the blood of a bat, or the fat of a mole, to ensure the hair would never return to disturb the serenity of the face. To us, it sounds bizarre. But to them, it was part of the mystery of beauty. A connection to the hidden forces of the natural world. Think of the lady's attendants, moving softly around her. They speak in whispers, their soft leather shoes making almost no sound on the stone floor. They bring a basin of warm rose water to wash away the depilatory paste. The water is splashed gently, splash, splash. It smells of summer gardens long gone. And when the face is dried with a soft linen cloth, the transformation is revealed. She is no longer the woman she was this morning. She has become an icon. The lack of eyebrows makes the forehead seem even higher, even more expansive. It creates a look of perpetual youth, of a childhood that never ends. Because infants, after all, have such faint, invisible brows. To look like an infant was to look pure, to look sinless, to look closer to the Garden of Eden. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the world through these wide, browless eyes. The world looks softer. The edges of things are less sharp. There is no need to react, no need to judge. You are simply a witness to the beauty of the silence. This was the boring reality of the medieval court. Long afternoons spent in the pursuit of a specific kind of nothingness. The nothingness of the skin. The nothingness of the brow. It was a rejection of the wildness of nature. The forest outside was thick with brambles and overgrown paths, but the lady's face was a garden that was perfectly weeded, perfectly tended. Feel your body sinking deeper into your bed. You are as still as that lady in her chair. The work is done. The arches are gone. The skin is smooth and cool. The candles have burned down an inch or two. The shadows in the corner of the room are thick and velvet-like. The lady looks at her reflection and sees a stranger, a celestial being that does not belong to the mud and the dust of the 14th century. But even in this perfection, there is a missing piece. The face is white, the veins are blue, the forehead is high, and the brows are gone. It is a masterpiece of paleness. Yet, a masterpiece needs a heart. It needs a spark of life, even if that spark is forbidden. Even if that spark must be stolen from the juice of a berry or the dust of a crushed insect. She looks at her cheeks. They are too white. Too much like a ghost. She needs the forbidden blush. But that is a story for the next chapter. For now, let yourself rest in the browless silence. Let your mind be as smooth as the lady's skin. No lines, no hair, no thoughts. Just the wide, open, expansive peace of the night. The mirror is covered with a silk cloth. The tweezers are put away. The porcelain jars are sealed. Sleep now, in the light of the moon. Sleep now, in the stillness of the Middle Ages. The world is quiet. And you are perfectly, beautifully still. The transformation is nearly complete. We have seen the face become a canvas of pale marble, the brows have vanished, and the veins are traced in delicate blue. But as the lady looks into her mirror in the deepening twilight, she sees a beauty that is almost too distant, almost too much like death. To be a living masterpiece, she needs one final thing. A ghost of a color. A whisper of warmth. Welcome to the world of the forbidden blush. Let your breath fall into a natural, easy rhythm. Imagine the weight of the heavy velvet curtains surrounding your bed. They shut out the world, just as they did for the women of the 14th century. In this era, makeup was a dangerous game. The church looked upon the alteration of the face with a stern, judgmental eye. To paint one's face was to tell God that his creation was not good enough. It was seen as an act of vanity, a trick of the devil. And yet, the heart of beauty has always desired a spark of life. And so, the blush became forbidden. It was not something discussed in the bright light of the courtyard. It was a secret shared between a lady and her maid, a ritual performed in the quiet, dusty corners of the solar, where the shadows could hide the evidence. Think of the materials. To get that soft, rosy glow, they couldn't just go to a store. They had to look to the earth, and to the insects. Imagine a small, wooden box. Inside, there is a powder made from crushed cochineal beetles, or perhaps the dried roots of the madder plant. Some use the juice of ripe mulberries, or the red sediment left over from making wine. The color is intense. A deep, blood red that looks startling against the white lead of the skin. The lady reaches out, her movements slow and deliberate. She takes a tiny piece of fine, carded wool. She dips it into the red dust. Tap, tap, tap. She knocks the excess powder away. She doesn't want to look painted. She wants to look as though a single, fleeting thought has brought a rush of blood to her cheeks. She wants to look like she is perpetually on the verge of a modest, noble blush. As you listen, imagine a soft, warm glow beginning at the center of your own cheeks. It isn't a heat of fever or stress. It's the warmth of a sunbeam on a cold stone wall. It's the feeling of a soft blanket being pulled up to your chin. She applies the color. Not in circles, but in a subtle, downward stroke. It has to be blended until it is almost invisible. Blended until it looks like it is coming from underneath the white lead, not sitting on top of it. The process is repetitive. Brush, blend, look. Brush, blend, look. The silence of the room is heavy. The only sound is the soft rustle of her silk sleeves against the oak table. She is chasing a paradox. She must be pale enough to look like she has never worked a day in her life, yet she must have enough color to look like she is healthy and fertile. Too much red, and she is seen as a woman of low morals. Too little, and she is a corpse. It is a boring kind of tension. A quiet, constant balancing act. Think of the ingredients she uses to make the color stay. A bit of sheep's fat, or a drop of almond oil. It smells of the earth. It feels heavy and rich. As she works the oil into the pigment, the texture changes. It becomes a cream, a secret balm that she hides at the bottom of her jewelry chest. If a priest were to walk in, she would hide the box under a prayer book. If her husband were to ask, she would say it is the natural glow of a virtuous life. But in the mirror, she knows the truth. She sees the way the red makes her eyes look brighter, how it makes the vastness of her forehead look even more angelic. As you drift further away from the waking world, imagine the colors of the medieval evening. The deep, burnt orange of the dying fire. The dark, charcoal gray of the cooling stones. And in the center of it all, this tiny, forbidden spark of red. This was the quiet rebellion of the medieval woman. In a world that told her how to pray, how to dress, and how to think, her face was the one place where she could exercise her own will. Even if it was just the width of a finger's stroke. The ritual of the blush is a meditation on life itself. It is the acknowledgement that even in the most rigid, cold, and stone-filled world, there is a need for warmth. Feel your hands becoming heavy. Feel your feet becoming still. You are part of this history now. You are a witness to the hours of effort spent on things that would only last for a single night. By the time the sun has completely vanished, and the only light comes from a single, flickering tallow candle, the lady is finished. The forbidden blush is perfect. It is a whisper of a rose in a winter field. She puts the wooden box away. She wipes her fingers on a damp cloth. The secret is safe. But we must remember, this beauty was not just for the face. It was part of a larger story. A story of how she moved, how she smelled, and how she sounded. For now, let the red fade into the darkness. Let the warmth of the blush turn into the warmth of your own sleep. The lady stands up from her chair. Her heavy skirts sweep across the floor, making a sound like the tide pulling back from the shore. Shh, shh, shh. She is ready to walk through the drafty halls. She is ready to be seen. But our journey does not end with her face. We must follow her as she moves toward the next stage of her day. To the scent of her hair, to the gold in her crown, and to the way her beauty was captured by the light of the stars. But those are chapters for another time. For now, there is only the glow. The soft, fading, forbidden glow. Sleep now, surrounded by the shadows of the castle. Sleep now, in the safety of the silence. The world of the 14th century is closing its eyes. And so are you. Good night, and let the dream of the rose lead you into the deep, quiet, dark. The face is set, a pale, motionless masterpiece of lead and blue veins, with that single, forbidden touch of rose on the cheeks. But now, we must look at what frames this canvas. In the Middle Ages, hair was not just hair. It was a woman's crowning glory, a symbol of her soul's purity and her family's wealth. Specifically, there was an obsession that transcended all others. The quest for gold. Welcome to the long, sun-drenched silence of the quest for golden locks. close your eyes and imagine a high balcony made of gray, weathered stone overlooking a valley in southern Europe. The year is 1350. The sun is warm, but not harsh. And there, sitting in a high-backed wooden chair, is a woman. She is not reading. She is not sewing. She is simply waiting. In this time, while dark hair was common, golden hair was the ideal. It was the color of the angels, the color of the saints in the gilded altarpieces of the great cathedrals. To have hair like spun gold was to be blessed by the heavens themselves. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the warmth of that imaginary sun on your shoulders. But nature, as we have seen, does not always comply with the ideals of the court. And so, the medieval woman turned to the slow, boring art of the sun bleach. Imagine the preparation. This wasn't a quick process from a bottle. It began with a mixture of things found in the garden and the apothecary's shelf. A wash made of saffron, crushed yellow flowers, and the rinds of lemons. Sometimes even more curious ingredients like honey, or even more potent, sulfurous mixtures were used to encourage the sun to work its magic. The lady's hair is long, very long. In the Middle Ages, a woman's hair often reached her waist, or even her knees. It was never cut, for it was her pride. Now, imagine her attendants carefully spreading her damp hair over a wide, flat-brimmed hat that has no top. A solana. This special hat allowed the hair to be spread out in the sun while the face remained shaded, protecting that ghostly, pale complexion we worked so hard to achieve in the first chapter. Drip, drip, drip. The excess rinse falls onto the stone floor. She must sit there for hours. For hours, 6 hours, sometimes all day. The sun moves slowly across the sky. The shadows of the castle turrets stretch and shift. The bees hum in the lavender bushes below. This is the essence of boring history. The sheer, repetitive stillness of it. There is no music. No conversation. Just the feeling of the wind catching the strands of hair, and the slow, chemical reaction between the saffron and the light. As you listen to my voice, imagine that weight of long, heavy hair being spread out. Feel the heaviness of your own head against the pillow. Let your thoughts be as slow as the drying of those golden strands. The medieval quest for blonde hair was so intense that women would even use lye, a harsh, caustic substance. It would sting, it would smell sharp and bitter. But they endured it. They sat in the silence, enduring the discomfort, all for the sake of a shade of yellow that would catch the candlelight at the evening feast. Think of the patience. This wasn't a one-day affair. This was a ritual repeated week after week, month after month. A slow, gradual fading of the dark into the light. And when the sun began to set, and the air grew cool, the hair was finally washed. Not with harsh soaps, but with infusions of chamomile and rosemary. The water would be poured from silver pitchers. Splash, ripple, splash. The sound of water in a quiet room is one of the oldest sounds in the world. It brings a sense of cleansing, a sense of completion. As the hair was dried with soft linen cloths, it began to glow. Not the bright, artificial blonde of today, but a soft, honey-toned, strawberry gold. A color that looked like it had been stolen from the last rays of an autumn afternoon. But the quest didn't end with the color. The hair had to be managed. It had to be disciplined. Imagine the combing. A comb made of polished bone or ivory. Scrape, glide, scrape, glide. 100 strokes, then 100 more. This was the work of the evening. In the dim light of the hearth, the golden hair would shimmer like a living flame. It was during these hours that the stories were told. The boring stories of ancestors, of saints, and of distant lands. The rhythm of the comb became the rhythm of the history itself. For the medieval woman, her golden locks were her secret treasure. Once she stepped outside her private chambers, this hair was often hidden away, braided into tight coils, or tucked under veils of fine silk. The world only got glimpses of it. A golden braid peeking out from a linen wimple. A stray curl at the temple. This made the beauty even more powerful. It was a hidden beauty. A beauty that existed only for the self, and for the quiet moments of the night. As you drift closer to the edge of sleep, imagine those long, golden braids being unraveled at the end of a long day. Feel the release of tension as the hair falls free. It is heavy and cool, and smells of dried flowers and sun. There is a peace in knowing that for thousands of years, people have sought out beauty in such slow, deliberate ways. They didn't rush. They understood that anything worth having, even a color, took time. It took the sun, it took the wind, and it took the silence. The quest for golden locks is a reminder to slow down. To let the light do its work. To let the time pass without counting the minutes. The balcony is empty now. The sun has dipped behind the mountains. The Solana hat is put away. The lady is back inside the stone walls, her hair a soft, golden cloud around her pale face. She is a vision of the Middle Ages. A creature of the sun, living in a world of shadows. But hair, as beautiful as it was only part of the frame. There were the headpieces, the silk veils, and the towering hats that turned a woman into a walking spire of gold and fabric. But that is a story for later. For now, let your mind be filled with the color of honey. Let your thoughts be as soft as silk. The comb is laid on the table. The fire is dying down. The golden locks are still. Sleep now, in the warmth of the sun-bleached memory. Sleep now, in the long, golden silence. The world is dark. But in your dreams, the light is always gold. We have spent time under the sun, watching the slow alchemy of saffron and light turn hair into gold. But in the medieval world, once that gold was perfected, it was often immediately hidden away. For a woman of status, her hair was a private sanctum, a treasure that only the walls of her chamber and the eyes of her family would ever truly know. Welcome to the quiet, modest, and layered world of the hidden tresses. Close your eyes, and imagine the sound of a heavy wooden door creaking shut, and the sliding of a metal bolt. Clink. This is the sound of privacy. In the world of the 14th century, the public eye was a place of strict rules. Once a girl became a woman, her hair moved from the shoulders to the shadows. To leave one's hair loose and flowing in the street was to be considered wild, untamed, or even scandalous. Modesty was the highest fashion. And so, the morning ritual changed from bleaching to binding. Take a slow, rhythmic breath. Feel the coolness of the sheets beneath you. Imagine the lady sitting on a low stool. Behind her, her maid begins the work of the hidden tresses. First, the long, golden-washed hair is brushed until it is a single, smooth sheet of silk. Then, it is divided. 2 sections, 3 sections, sometimes many more. The braiding begins. Over, under, pull. Over, under, pull. Imagine the sensation of your hair being gathered. It's a feeling of being contained, of being organized. The weight of the hair is lifted from the neck and coiled tightly behind the ears, or pinned into two flat circles on either side of the head, like the braided shells of a sea creature. These braids had to be tight. They had to last all day. There were no sprays, no modern pins. Only silk ribbons and small, hand-carved bone needles to sew the hair into place. Think of the patience required to sew your hair. The needle dipping in and out of the braids, anchoring the weight of the gold to the scalp. It is a slow, repetitive, boring process. And in that boredom, there is peace. As you listen, imagine all the loose ends of your own day being gathered and braided. All the stray thoughts, all the messy worries, they are being woven into a neat, tight, stable structure. They cannot escape. They are held fast. Once the hair was bound, the layers of linen and silk would begin. The first layer was the wimple, a piece of fine, white linen that wrapped around the neck and chin, framing the face in a circle of purity. Imagine the feeling of soft, cool cloth against your jawline. It limits your movement, forcing you to hold your head high, to move with a slow, deliberate grace. Then, over the wimple, came the veil. A veil wasn't just a piece of fabric. It was a cloud of transparency. Made of silk from the East, or the finest lawn from Italy. It was so thin that you could see the ghost of the golden braids through it, but only just. The maid takes the veil, and with small, silver pins, she attaches it to the top of the head. Pin, click. Pin, click. The fabric falls down the back, reaching the waist. It catches the air as the lady moves, a slow, silent ripple of white in the dim corridors of the castle. Why this obsession with hiding what was beautiful? Because in the medieval mind, the hidden was the sacred. By covering her hair, the lady was saying that she was a woman of discipline. She was a woman of the indoors. She was a piece of art that required a cover to protect its value. Think of the silence under that veil. It creates a private world. When you wear a wimple and a veil, the sounds of the world are slightly muffled. Your own breathing becomes a rhythmic, soothing companion. You are inside your own cathedral of fabric. The room is very still now. The sun has climbed higher, and a single beam of light hits the white linen of the veil, making it glow like a candle. There is a beauty in this restraint. We live in a world of showing everything, of constant display. But the medieval world found peace in the unseen. They knew that the imagination is often more powerful than the eyes. To know that beneath that white linen there is a secret crown of golden braids, that is the true magic of the hidden tresses. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine yourself being wrapped in these layers of soft, ancient fabric. Not to hide you, but to protect you. To keep the world out, and to keep your peace in. The weight of the linen is comforting. The tightness of the braids is a steady, constant anchor. In the afternoon, the lady might sit in the garden. The wind blows, but her hair does not move. It is safe. It is still. The veil dances, but the woman is a statue. This is the boring history of the afternoon. The hours spent sitting with hands folded, the veil resting on the shoulders, the mind drifting through the quiet spaces of the castle. No one is rushing her. There are no clocks ticking with urgency. only the shadows moving across the sundial in the courtyard. The hidden tresses remind us that we don't always have to be seen to be valuable. We can exist in our own, quiet, shaded spaces. As the sun begins to set, the lady returns to her chamber. The ritual of the morning is reversed. One by one, the silver pins are removed. Tink, tink, tink. They fall into a small ceramic bowl. The veil is lifted. The wimple is unwrapped. And finally, the silk ribbons are untied. The braids are unraveled. The golden hair falls free at last, tumbling down her back like a waterfall of honey in the twilight. But even as it falls, she knows that tomorrow it will be gathered again. For the beauty of the hair is not in its freedom, but in the ritual of its care. Feel your own thoughts unraveling now. Let them fall loose and long. You are no longer bound by the day. You are no longer pinned to your responsibilities. The linen is folded. The pins are counted. The room is dark. The hidden tresses are free for the night, but only in the safety of the dream. Sleep now, wrapped in the memory of silk and linen. Sleep now, in the muffled silence of the veil. The world is sleeping, and your secrets are safe. We have seen the hair bound in secret, hidden under veils of soft linen and whispers of silk. But as we move into the late 15th century, the desire for modesty began to merge with a grander, more gravity-defying ambition. The forehead was already high, the hair was already tucked away, and now the nobility looked toward the sky. They wanted to reach for the heavens, quite literally, with their heads. Welcome to the slow, vertical, and silent world of the towering hennin. Close your eyes, and let the muscles in your neck and shoulders completely relax. Imagine a long, narrow corridor in a Burgundian palace. The stone is cool, and the only light comes from the high, narrow windows. Across the floor, a figure moves. She doesn't just walk, she glides. And above her head, a great, conical spire of fabric rises like the steeple of a cathedral. This is the hennin. It is a shape that defines an era. A long, tapering cone, sometimes 2 feet high, tilted back at a precise, elegant angle. To wear one was to embody the very essence of late medieval grace. But to wear one also required a level of stillness and patience that is almost unimaginable to us today. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the air filling your lungs, and let it out with a quiet sigh. Imagine the construction of this masterpiece. It begins not with silk, but with something stiff, something structural. A frame made of starched linen, or perhaps light, flexible wire, or even thin sheets of card. It is a hollow tower, waiting to be draped. The lady sits perfectly still as the maid begins to cover the frame. They choose the finest velvet, or a heavy, shimmering brocade. The fabric is stretched over the cone, pinned with invisible stitches. Scrape, pull, pin. Scrape, pull, pin. The sound is small. The sound is repetitive. It is the sound of a tower being built. Think of the weight. It isn't heavy like a helmet, but it is tall. It changes the way you perceive the world. When you wear a hennin, you must always be aware of the space above you. You must learn the boring art of measuring every doorway with your eyes. You must learn the slow, calculated tilt of the head to avoid the low-hanging chandeliers and the archways of the great hall. As you listen to my voice, imagine that verticality. Imagine your spine lengthening, becoming a graceful pillar. There is no rush to move. There is only the balance. But the hennin was not just a cone. It was a stage for the most delicate fabric in the world. The lawn. Imagine a veil of such extreme fineness that it looks like frozen mist. It is attached to the very tip of the hennin, the point of the spire. From there, it cascades down. Sometimes it is draped over the face in a V shape, and sometimes it falls all the way to the floor, trailing behind the lady like the tail of a comet. When the wind catches this veil, it doesn't flap. It billows. It moves in slow motion, a silent dance of white against the dark stone walls. Inside the hennin, the lady's hair is pulled back even tighter than before. Not a single strand is allowed to show. Even the tiny baby hairs at the temple are plucked or tucked away with a special velvet loop. The face is left completely isolated, a pale, perfect oval, topped by this impossible, majestic spire. Think of the silence in the dressing room as the final pin is placed. The hennin is heavy enough to feel, but light enough to dream in. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the lady walking through the castle gardens at twilight. The sun is a dull, golden orb on the horizon. Her hennin catches the very last of the light. She looks like a moving monument. There is a peace in this kind of fashion. It doesn't allow for sudden movements. You cannot run in a hennin. You cannot turn your head quickly. To wear it is to commit to a life of slow, rhythmic, and deliberate grace. It turns every walk into a procession. It turns every moment into a ceremony. We live in a world of fast. Fast fashion, fast talk, fast thoughts. But the hennin is the ultimate slow. It is the beauty of the long, tapering line. It is the beauty of the carefully balanced spire. Imagine the stillness of her neck, the poise of her chin. She is a bridge between the earth and the clouds. And as she sits down for the evening meal, she must be careful. She sits on a stool with no back, her spine straight, her hennin rising behind her like a silent guardian. She listens to the music of the harp, the notes floating up toward the rafters, just as her veil floats behind her. The music is repetitive. A simple melody, played over and over. Pluck, hum, pluck, hum. It matches the beat of her heart. It matches the rhythm of your own breath. Feel your body sinking into the mattress. You don't have to balance anything. You don't have to measure any doorways. You can just let go. The hennin is more than just a hat. It is a symbol of a time when people weren't afraid of being boring. They weren't afraid of spending hours just being, sitting, balancing, existing in a state of quiet, vertical perfection. As the night grows deeper, the lady returns to her room. The process of the morning is reversed, but even more slowly. The veil is unpinned first. It falls to the floor like a dying cloud. Then, the hennin itself is lifted. Imagine the sensation of that weight being removed. The sudden lightness of the head. The cool air hitting the scalp. It is a moment of profound relief, a moment of pure, unadulterated peace. The frame is placed on a wooden stand. It looks like a ghost in the corner of the room. The lady rubs her temples, her fingers moving in small, slow circles. The tension of the day is gone. The spire has been taken down. The room is dark now. The only sound is the distant hoot of an owl in the castle woods. The towering hennin is a memory now. A story of height and fabric and the slow passage of time. Sleep now in the lightness that follows the tower. Sleep now in the horizontal piece of your bed. The spires are gone. The veils are folded. The world is flat and still and quiet. We have reached a point of stillness, a place where the face is a mask of moon-white lead, the forehead is a vast, clear horizon, and the head is crowned by the towering spires of silk and velvet. But what of the body that carries this art? In the late Middle Ages, the ideal physique was not one of strength or robust health. No. It was something much more elusive. Something ethereal. Welcome to the quiet, fragile, and drifting world of the ethereal figure. Close your eyes and imagine you are watching a swan glide across a dark, frozen lake. There is no effort in its movement. It seems to float just above the water, a creature of mist and grace. This was the goal of the medieval lady. To look as though she were not entirely made of flesh and bone, but of spirit and shadow. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel your ribcage expand and contract, like the soft bellows of a distant pipe organ. In this time, to be sturdy was to be a peasant. To be muscular was to be a laborer. But to be noble was to be fragile. The ideal figure was slight, with narrow shoulders and a delicate, swan-like neck. It was a beauty that suggested the wearer had never lifted anything heavier than a silk fan or a prayer book. Imagine the lady standing in the center of her chamber. She is being dressed in the cotehardie, a gown so long and so tight that it defines every line of her torso. But it does not emphasize strength. It emphasizes a peculiar, S-shaped curve. The S-curve was the height of Gothic elegance. The shoulders were pulled back, the chest was held high, and the stomach was pushed forward slightly, creating a silhouette that mimicked the graceful sway of a willow tree in a light breeze. Think of the stillness required to maintain this posture. It is not a natural way to stand. It is a practiced, boring, and constant effort. As you listen to my voice, imagine your own spine softening. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Feel the weight of your body being supported entirely by the bed beneath you. You do not need to hold yourself up anymore. You can let the S-curve dissolve into the mattress. To achieve this ethereal look, the clothing did much of the work. The gowns were lined with heavy linen to create a smooth, stiff surface. There were no lumps, no bumps, no signs of the messy reality of a human body. The sleeves were so long that they often reached the floor, trailing behind her hands like the wings of a butterfly that is too tired to fly. Imagine the sound of those sleeves. Swish, swish, swish. A soft, rhythmic brushing against the stone floor. It is a hypnotic sound. A sound that tells the world, I am here, but I am not of this earth. During the long, rainy afternoons in the castle, the lady would practice her ethereal walk. It was a movement that required the knees to be kept close together, and the steps to be tiny, almost invisible beneath the heavy folds of her skirt. She didn't walk, she drifted. Think of the patience of those afternoons. Walking back and forth in a dim gallery, lit only by the gray light of a storm. Step, drift. Step, drift. No one was watching. This was the boring work of becoming a symbol. There was also a strange, quiet obsession with the high waist. The gowns were belted just beneath the bust, making the legs seem impossibly long, and the torso seem small and delicate. It made the woman look like a flower on a long, slender stem. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine yourself as that flower. Your roots are deep in the cool, dark earth, but your spirit is light, airy, and swaying in the wind. The food they ate also played a role in this quest for the ethereal. A noblewoman didn't feast on heavy meats and coarse bread. She nibbled on subtleties, small, delicate sweets made of almond paste and rose water. She drank watered-down wine. Her hunger was not for food, but for a certain kind of lightness. There is a peace in this idea of fragility. We spend so much of our modern lives trying to be strong, trying to be productive, trying to be resilient. But the medieval ethereal figure reminds us that there is beauty in being delicate. There is grace in being still. There is power in being a ghost in the room. Imagine the lady sitting by a window as the light fades to a deep, bruised purple. She is so still that a bird might land on the stone ledge beside her. She is a part of the architecture. A living statue in a world of stone. The room is very quiet now. The heavy tapestries on the walls muffle the sounds of the wind outside. The ethereal figure is resting. She doesn't move. She doesn't speak. She simply exists in the space between the light and the dark. Feel the heaviness of your limbs. They feel like the heavy, velvet skirts of the lady's gown. They are anchored to the bed, but your mind is like the silk veil, floating upward, drifting through the rafters of the castle, out into the night sky. The quest for the ethereal was a quest for the soul. By making the body seem almost invisible, almost transparent, they believed the soul could shine through more clearly. The white skin, the blue veins, the golden hair, and the fragile body. They all worked together to create a vision of someone who was halfway to heaven already. As the final candle in the room flickers and dies, the lady's silhouette disappears into the shadows. The ethereal figure is gone. Only the silence remains. The S-curve is relaxed. The high waist is loosened. The heavy sleeves are laid aside. The body is no longer a work of art. It is just a body. Tired, warm, and ready for the long, dreamless sleep of the Middle Ages. Sleep now, in your own ethereal space. Sleep now, in the weightless dark. The towers are silent. The swans are asleep on the lake. And you are drifting, drifting, into the heart of the night. The face is a mask of marble, the forehead is a vast horizon, and the body is a fragile willow in the wind. But as we look deeper, past the white lead and the blue veins, we find the windows to the soul. In the Middle Ages, the eyes were not just for seeing. They were mirrors of a woman's spiritual depth, her mystery, and her silent devotion. To achieve the soulful gaze, they looked for a look that was wide, dark, and perpetually dreaming. Welcome to the deep, shimmering, and slightly dangerous world of the soulful gaze. Close your eyes, and imagine you are standing in a quiet courtyard at midnight. The stars are reflected in a dark, still pond. Those reflections are not sharp, they are soft, watery, and infinitely deep. This was the ideal for a noblewoman's eyes. They were not meant to be piercing or sharp, but liquid, vast, and full of a quiet longing. Take a slow, effortless breath. Feel the air moving like a cool mist through your mind. To create this look, the medieval lady turned to the shadows of the garden, to a plant with a name that whispered of beauty and death. Belladonna, the beautiful lady. Imagine a small glass dropper, held by a steady hand in the dim light of a bedchamber. Inside is the extract of the deadliest nightshade. Just one drop, perhaps two, into each eye. Drip. Drip. The effect was almost immediate. The pupils, those dark centers of our vision, would begin to expand. They would grow larger and larger, swallowing the iris, until the eyes looked like two great, dark pools of ink. This was the soulful gaze. As you listen, imagine your own eyes relaxing behind your lids. Let the muscles around your sockets soften completely. Feel the darkness behind your eyes expanding, becoming wide and peaceful, like the night sky itself. When a woman's pupils are dilated, she looks as though she is in a state of perpetual wonder. She looks as though she is seeing things that others cannot see, angels, spirits, or the very fabric of eternity. It gave her an air of otherworldliness, as if she were a traveler from another realm who had just arrived in the stone halls of the castle. But there was a boring, quiet price for this celestial look. With eyes so wide, the world became a blur. The fine tapestries on the walls would lose their detail. The flickering candles would turn into soft, glowing orbs of light. The lady lived in a world without sharp edges. She moved through a haze of beauty, her vision as soft as the silk of her veil. Think of the patience required to live in a blur. To navigate a room by instinct and memory rather than sight. To sit at a banquet and hear the voices, but see only the shimmering ghosts of the people around you. It created a stillness in her. Because she couldn't see the distractions of the world, she became a distraction herself. She was the center of the storm, perfectly calm, perfectly blurred. Tick, tick, tick. The shadow on the sundial outside has moved, but inside, the lady remains in her trance. As you drift closer to sleep, think of the peace that comes from not seeing everything clearly. We spend our days staring at sharp screens, at high-definition problems, at the jagged edges of reality. But for a moment, let your world blur. Let the details of your worries fade into soft, out-of-focus shapes. You don't need to see them right now. You only need to feel the dark, expansive space of your own mind. The belladonna made the eyes sensitive to light. The sun was too bright, too harsh. And so, the lady of the soulful gaze preferred the shadows. She preferred the long, gray afternoons. She preferred the soft, yellow glow of beeswax candles. In this dim light, her dark, dilated eyes would drink in every stray beam of light, making them shimmer like black diamonds. There is a rhythm to this kind of beauty. A slow, rhythmic blinking. Close, open. Close, open. Each blink is a curtain falling on a dream. She would sit for hours, her hands resting in her lap, her eyes fixed on nothing in particular. To an outsider, she looked like she was meditating on the divine. And perhaps, in her own blurred way, she was. The soulful gaze was the final piece of the medieval mask. It took the pale, painted face and gave it a heart. It took the towering headdresses and gave them a base of mystery. But the nightshade was a poison. If used too often, the blur would never go away. The heart would race, the throat would grow dry, and the world would slowly fade into a permanent shadow. It was a sacrifice of the physical for the sake of the aesthetic. A boring tragedy that unfolded over years of quiet afternoons and candlelit evenings. But tonight, we are only interested in the stillness. The quiet. The expansion. Imagine yourself sitting in a high-backed chair in a room filled with incense and the smell of old parchment. The world outside is cold, but here, it is warm and soft. Your eyes are wide, but you are not looking at anything. You are looking into the quiet. Feel the weight of your body. It is like the heavy, velvet curtains of the bed. It is an anchor. But your gaze, your soulful gaze, is floating. It is drifting through the stone arches, past the sleeping hounds in the hall, and up toward the moon. The belladonna has done its work. The world is a dream. The edges are gone. The dropper is placed back in its velvet-lined box. The lady closes her eyes at last. The wide, dark pupils are hidden behind the pale lids. The trance is over. The room is silent. The candles are nothing but smoke and memory. As you sink deeper into your pillow, let your own gaze turn inward. Find the dark, quiet pond within yourself. Watch the stars reflected there. Sleep now, in the blurred, beautiful dark. Sleep now, in the soul's reflection. The nightshade is silent. The world is a shadow. And you are perfectly, beautifully asleep. We have traveled through the visual wonders of the medieval world, the white skin, the golden hair, and the wide, dark eyes of the nightshade. But beauty in the Middle Ages was not just a feast for the eyes. It was an experience for all the senses. In a world where the air could be heavy with the scent of wood smoke, damp stone, and the crowded life of the city, the noblewoman sought to create her own private atmosphere. She sought to surround herself with the scent of spices. Welcome to the aromatic, drifting, and spice-filled silence of the medieval chamber. Close your eyes and take a slow, deep breath. Imagine the air around you is no longer thin or empty. It is thick with the smell of dried lavender, crushed cloves, and the warm, resinous scent of frankincense. This was the invisible cloak of the nobility, a shield of fragrance that separated them from the common world. In this time, bathing was not the daily ritual we know today. To submerge the whole body in water was a long, complicated, and often expensive task. It required great wooden tubs, buckets of water heated over an open fire, and the labor of many servants. Because of this, the art of cleanliness was a boring, meticulous ritual of dry washing and the clever use of botanicals. Take a slow, rhythmic breath. Feel your body becoming heavier, more grounded, as if you are sinking into a pile of soft, linen cushions. Imagine the lady's morning ritual. She does not step into a shower. Instead, she sits by the hearth, and her maid brings a basin of warm water infused with rose petals and sage. A linen cloth is dipped into the water, wrung out, and used to slowly, carefully wipe the skin. Drip, squeeze, wipe. Drip, squeeze, wipe. The sound is soft. The movement is repetitive. It is a meditation on the surface of the body. It is not about rushing to be clean, it is about the slow, rhythmic care of the self. As you listen, imagine that warm, damp cloth moving over your own skin. It carries with it the scent of a summer garden in the rain. It washes away the dust of the day, leaving behind only a faint, floral ghost. But the true secret of the medieval scent lay in the pomander. Imagine a small, intricate sphere of gold or silver, hanging from a silk cord at the lady's waist. It is carved with tiny holes, like a miniature stars in a metal sky. Inside this sphere lies a treasure of the East. A ball of ambergris, mixed with musk, cinnamon, and cloves. As the lady walks, the pomander swings gently against her heavy wool skirts. Clink, sway, clink, sway. With every movement, a tiny cloud of spice is released. It follows her like a loyal shadow. It creates a circle of scent that only those invited into her personal space can breathe. Think of the patience required to blend these scents. The spices had to be ground by hand in a stone mortar. Grind, rotate, grind. The sound of the pestle is the heartbeat of the apothecary's shop. It takes hours to turn a stick of cinnamon into a powder so fine it can vanish into a wax base. This is the boring history of the spice trade. Not the wars or the ships, but the quiet afternoons spent in a kitchen, mixing cloves with rosewater to create a paste for the teeth. Yes, even the breath had to be spicy. In a world without modern dentistry, the lady would chew on single cloves or small pieces of licorice root. It kept the breath sweet and the mind sharp. Imagine the slow, rhythmic chewing. The sharp, numbing heat of the clove on the tongue. It is a tiny, private sensation in a world of grand gestures. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine your own breath becoming as sweet and clear as a winter morning. Let the tension in your jaw dissolve. Let your tongue rest heavily in your mouth. You are part of this aromatic world now. At night, the scent ritual changed. The heavy, spicy scents of the day were laid aside. The bed linens were not just washed, they were sweetened. Imagine a large wooden chest where the linens are kept. Between every layer of white fabric, there are dried sprigs of lavender, woodruff, and rose. They have sat there for months, in the dark, sharing their souls with the cloth. When the bed is turned down, the scent of 1,000 dried flowers is released into the room. It is a soft, dusty, comforting smell. It is the smell of safety. Think of the lady lying down in these scented sheets. The fabric is cool, but the scent is warm. It wraps around her like a dream. The room is very still. The only light comes from a small, floating wick in a bowl of oil. The air is still thick with the memory of the pomander, but now it is fading, merging with the lavender of the bed. There is a peace in this layering of fragrance. It is a reminder that we can curate our own world. Even when the world outside is harsh or loud, we can create a space that is soft and spicy and still. The scent of spices was a way of claiming one's own existence. To smell like cinnamon and roses was to say, I am here. I am refined. I am cared for. Feel your own existence now. Not as a list of tasks or a collection of worries, but as a physical presence in a quiet room. You are here. You are safe. You are surrounded by the invisible scent of peace. As the night grows deeper, the scent of the spices settles into the tapestries. It settles into the wood of the bed frame. It settles into the lady's long, golden-washed hair. The world of the 14th century is a world of slow, drifting molecules. Everything is moving in slow motion. The smoke from the snuffed candle curls upward in a silver ribbon, carrying the last scent of the wick into the rafters. The pomander is still. The cloves are silent. The rosewater has evaporated. Sleep now, in the aromatic embrace of the past. Sleep now, as the scent of lavender leads you into the deep, floral dark. The gardens are sleeping. The spice ships are far away on a silent sea. And you are drifting, drifting, into the fragrant heart of the night. We have explored the scents that shielded the nobility and the colors that transformed their faces. But there is a detail, a subtle movement of the face, that tells a story of its own. If you look at the portraits from the High Middle Ages, you will notice something peculiar. No one is laughing. No one is showing their teeth. Instead, they offer us a mystery. Welcome to the quiet, guarded, and serene world of the closed-lip smile. Close your eyes and imagine you are standing in a long, sun-drenched gallery. You are looking at a tapestry of a young maiden. Her face is perfect, her eyes are wide, and her mouth is set in a delicate, horizontal line. The corners are turned up just a fraction of a millimeter. It is a smile of secrets. It is a smile of ultimate restraint. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the muscles in your jaw loosen. Let your lips rest lightly against each other. In the medieval world, the mouth was seen as a gateway. To open it wide, to laugh loudly, or to show the teeth was considered a lapse in character. It was seen as animalistic, something belonging to the unrefined masses who shouted in the marketplace. But a noblewoman? She was a vessel of composure. Her smile was a wall, beautifully constructed, and never breached. There was, of course, a very boring and practical reason for this silence. Imagine the dental reality of the year 1300. There were no toothbrushes as we know them. No minty pastes. Instead, there was the slow, daily battle against decay. While the nobility ate better than the peasants, they also had access to something dangerous. Sugar. Sugar was an exotic luxury, a spice from the East. And as it became more common on the tables of the elite, the teeth began to pay the price. Think of the lady at her mirror. She does not scrub her teeth with plastic bristles. She reaches for a small, frayed twig of mallow or rosemary. She dips the end into a powder made of burnt bread, crushed eggshells, and a hint of cinnamon. Scrape, rub, scrape. Scrape, rub, scrape. The sound is small, rhythmic, and internal. It is the sound of maintenance. It is the boring, repetitive work of trying to keep the pearly in the smile. As you listen to my voice, imagine a cool, herbal paste being rubbed onto your own gums. It feels clean, slightly tingly, and very refreshing. The tension in your mouth begins to fade. You don't need to speak. You don't need to explain anything. You only need to be still. After the cleaning, she rinses with a mixture of vinegar and honey. Swish, swish, swish. But despite these efforts, time and sugar were often the victors. If a tooth was lost, or if the enamel grew dark, the solution was not a repair, but a concealment. The closed-lip smile became a shield. It was a way to maintain the illusion of the ethereal figure we spoke of earlier. If the skin is marble, and the hair is gold, then the mouth must be a silent, perfect line of rose-colored silk. But there was a deeper, more spiritual meaning to this smile as well. In the medieval mind, a closed mouth was a sign of a guarded soul. To speak little was to be wise. To smile without showing teeth was to show that you were in control of your passions. It was the smile of the Virgin Mary in the cathedral statues. A smile that says, "I am at peace with the universe, and I need nothing from the world." As you drift closer to sleep, imagine yourself adopting that same internal peace. You don't need to smile for anyone. You don't need to perform. Your mouth is at rest. Your expression is neutral, calm, and infinitely still. Think of the silence of a medieval banquet. The music of the lute is playing. The wine is being poured into silver goblets. Glug, glug, ripple. The lady sits at the high table. Someone tells a joke, a witty remark. She doesn't burst into a loud laugh. She simply tilts her head, and her lips remain sealed in that perfect, horizontal line. It is a boring kind of elegance. It is the beauty of what is not said. It is the beauty of the unspoken thought. In the dim light of the evening, this smile became even more powerful. The shadows would soften the edges of the mouth, making it look like a faint carving in the pale lead of her face. She looked like she was dreaming while awake. Feel the weight of your own silence now. It is a heavy, comfortable blanket. The world is full of noise, full of people shouting and showing their teeth. But here, in this history, everything is quiet. Everything is contained. The lady's ritual for the mouth included more than just cleaning. She would use a small, silver pick to remove any stray seeds or fibers. Click, tink. Click, tink. A meticulous, slow process. Then, she would apply a balm made of beeswax and rose oil to her lips. Not to make them shiny, but to keep them soft and supple, so they wouldn't crack when she held that long, silent smile. Imagine the scent of the rose oil right under your nose. It is faint, sweet, and ancient. The closed-lip smile reminds us that we have a private self. A self that doesn't have to be shared with the public. Behind those sealed lips, the lady could be thinking anything. She could be composing a poem, or remembering a secret garden, or simply counting the heartbeats of the castle. As the night grows deeper, the lady prepares for bed. The smile finally relaxes. Her mouth softens into its natural shape as she breathes the cool night air. The work of the day is done. The mask of the court is laid aside. She no longer has to be the icon of restraint. She can just be. The room is very dark now. The only sound is the rhythmic, slow breathing of someone who has nothing left to prove. As you sink into the depths of your own sleep, let your smile fade into a line of pure, effortless peace. No one is looking. No one is judging. You are the only inhabitant of your silent kingdom. The toothpicks are back in their ivory case. The vinegar and honey are put away. The rose balm has soaked into the skin. Sleep now, in the safety of the unspoken. We have spent much of our journey in the solar, the private chambers of the ladies, watching the application of lead and the braiding of gold. But as we step out into the great hall, through the heavy oak doors and into the flickering light of the hearth, we encounter another kind of artifice. The beauty of the medieval man. In the 14th century, masculinity was not defined by the rugged or the unkempt. No. For the noble, it was a performance of elegance, a quiet, calculated display of power and refinement. Welcome to the measured, graceful, and silent world of the noble masculinity. Close your eyes, and imagine the sound of spurs clinking softly on stone. Clink, clink, clink. It is a rhythmic sound, like a slow clock ticking in a room of velvet. This man does not rush. To rush is to show that you are a servant of time. But a nobleman? He is the master of his own minutes. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel your chest expand, not with the tension of a soldier, but with the ease of a king. In this era, the masculine ideal was as much about the ethereal as the feminine was. The medieval knight was not a wall of muscle. He was a long, lean, and vertical figure. His legs were emphasized by tight-fitting hose, showing every line of the limb, suggesting a grace that was more like a dancer than a brawler. Think of the patience required to dress a nobleman. It was a boring ritual of layers. First, the linen shirt, soft and white, tucked precisely. Then the doublet, a garment padded and quilted to create a chest that was broad, but a waist that was narrow. Imagine the feeling of being encased in such a garment. It holds you upright. It commands your posture. You cannot slouch. You cannot collapse. You are held in a state of perpetual, noble readiness. As you listen to my voice, let your own posture relax. You do not have to hold yourself up. The bed is your armor now. Let the weight of your limbs sink into the mattress, just as a knight might sink into a soft chair after a day of ceremony. The face of the medieval man was also a subject of great care. While the ladies sought the ghostly glow, the men sought a look of weathered refinement. A tan was still common from the hunt or the field, but it had to be groomed. Imagine the barber-surgeon arriving at the castle. He brings with him a roll of leather containing razors of the finest steel. The ritual of the shave. A bowl of hot water, the steam rising in the cold air. The scent of bay laurel and sandalwood. The thick, white lather of the soap being applied with a brush of badger hair. Swish, swish, swish. Then, the long, slow stroke of the razor. Scrape, glide. Scrape, glide. It is a dangerous silence. A moment where time stands still. The man must be perfectly motionless. His breathing must be shallow. Think of that stillness. The trust in the hand of the barber. The feeling of the cold steel against the throat. It is a meditation on the edge of a blade. If he wore a beard, it was not a wild growth. It was a sculpture. Trimmed into a point, or perhaps a small, square block. It was oiled with the same rose and almond oils used by the ladies, making it shimmer in the torchlight. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the scent of that beard oil. Woodsy, earthy, and yet incredibly clean. It is the smell of a forest that has been tamed. The hair of the nobleman was another study in boring perfection. In the mid-14th century, the pageboy cut was common. Hair that reached the jawline, curled under with heated tongs. Imagine the heat of the fire, the tongs being pulled from the embers, and the scent of singed hair and lavender water. Hiss, curl. Hiss, curl. The hair had to be symmetrical. It had to frame the face like a golden or chestnut helmet. It gave the man a look of youth, of vitality, but also of extreme discipline. And then, there was the movement. The noble masculinity was expressed in the long step. A walk that was slow, deliberate, and graceful. The toes pointed slightly outward, the head held high, the eyes never darting, but moving with the steady, heavy gaze of a lion. Step, pause. Step, pause. Think of the quiet power in that rhythm. It is the rhythm of someone who knows exactly who they are. Someone who doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. As you lay there, let your own mind adopt that steady, lion-like calm. You don't need to look for anything. You don't need to react to anything. You are the master of this quiet hour. The clothing of the man was often more colorful than that of the woman. Deep reds, royal blues, and vibrant greens. But they were not loud colors. They were the colors of jewels, the colors of the earth after a heavy rain. The weight of the velvet was immense. A heavy cloak, lined with the fur of a squirrel or a fox. Imagine the weight of that cloak on your shoulders. It is a comforting weight. It is a protection against the drafts of the world. In the evening, the nobleman might sit by the fire, a hound at his feet. He doesn't fidget. He doesn't tap his fingers. He simply gazes into the flames. He is a part of the stone, a part of the history. The noble masculinity reminds us that strength is not always found in action. Often, it is found in the ability to be still. The ability to wait. The ability to be silent. Feel your own strength in your stillness now. You are not doing anything, and yet, you are complete. You are resting. You are healing. You are becoming. As the night grows deeper, the nobleman retires to his own chambers. The doublet is unlaced. Pull, snap. Pull, snap. The heavy cloak is folded and laid over a wooden chest. The boots are pulled off. The tight hose are loosened. The man of ceremony becomes a man of the night. The room is very dark. The fire has burned down to a few glowing embers, like the eyes of a sleeping beast. The noble masculinity is laid aside. The performance is over for today. As you sink into the darkness, imagine the silence of the great hall after the torches have been extinguished. The cold stone, the sleeping hounds, the heavy tapestries. Everything is at rest. The razor is in its box. The doublet is on the chair. The sword is in its scabbard. Sleep now, in the strength of the silence. Sleep now, in the grace of the long, dark night. The kingdom is quiet. The watchman has passed. And you are drifting, drifting, into the heart of the noble dark. We have seen the visual elegance of the noble man and the fragile beauty of the lady, but as we move through the crowded corridors of the late 14th century, we realize that beauty was often a defense. In a time when the air itself was believed to carry the seeds of sickness, when the miasma, or bad air, was a constant shadow, fragrance became more than a luxury. It became a fortress. Welcome to the protective, invisible, and spice-scented world of the aromatic shield. Close your eyes, and imagine the cold, damp air of a medieval winter. The smell of wet wool, of stone dust, and the heavy, sweet smoke of tallow candles. Now, imagine a sudden, sharp burst of something different. The scent of a lemon grove, or a handful of crushed cloves from a land thousands of miles away. This was the shield. Take a slow, deep, effortless breath. Feel the air entering your nostrils as a thin, silver stream of peace. At the center of this aromatic protection was an object of extreme craftsmanship. The pomander. Imagine a silver ball, no larger than a plum, hanging from a gold chain. It is etched with the symbols of the zodiac or the delicate vines of a hidden garden. Clink, sway. Clink, sway. It rests against the velvet of a gown or the leather of a doublet. It is the constant companion of the elite. The lady or the lord would reach for this sphere whenever they stepped into a crowd, or whenever the air felt heavy and stagnant. They would lift it to their nose and breathe deeply, drawing in a private atmosphere, a world within a world. Think of the boring, meticulous work of filling a pomander. It wasn't just stuffed with flowers. It was a science. Imagine an apothecary's workbench. On it lies a lump of ambergris, a waxy, mysterious substance from the ocean that holds scent for decades. Beside it, a pile of musk and a dish of civet. These were the fixatives, the anchors of the shield. The apothecary begins to grind the spices. Scrape, rotate, grind. Cinnamon from Ceylon, cloves from the Moluccas, nutmeg and mace. The sound is steady. The rhythm is hypnotic. Each spice is a layer of the wall they are building against the world. As you listen to my voice, imagine those scents being layered around you. First, a base of warm, earthy wood. Then, a layer of sharp, spicy heat. And finally, a top note of sweet, ethereal rose or lavender. You are being wrapped in a blanket of fragrance. It is thick. It is safe. It is silent. The pomander was often divided into sections, like the segments of an orange. One section for cloves, one for cinnamon, one for dried rose, and one for the precious ambergris. The wearer could choose their defense depending on the day. Is the air outside the castle walls thick with the smell of the river? They breathe the cloves. Is the great hall too crowded with the scent of unwashed wool? They turn to the rose. It was a form of control. In a world where you could not control the weather, or the plague, or the noise, you could at least control what you breathed. Think of the stillness of a lady sitting in a drafty chapel. The stone is freezing. The chanting of the monks is a low, vibrating hum. She holds her pomander to her face. The scent of the warm spices creates a bubble of summer around her. She is no longer in the cold chapel. She is in her mind's garden. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine your own pomander. What scents would you put inside to shield you from the noise of the modern world? Perhaps the smell of rain on hot pavement, or the scent of a new book, or the smell of a pine forest in the early morning. Let those scents fill your room now. They are invisible. They are weightless. But they are strong. They keep the worries out. They keep the peace in. The aromatic shield extended beyond the pomander. It was in the scented gloves that were gifted between kings. Gloves made of the softest kidskin, soaked for weeks in oils of jasmine and neroli. Imagine the sensation of putting on those gloves. They are cool and supple. And every time you move your hands, every time you reach for a cup or a book, a faint, floral whisper follows you. Rustle, scent. Rustle, scent. It made every action feel deliberate. Every gesture was a gift to the senses. But there was a boring side to this beauty too. The constant need to refresh the oils. The hours spent rubbing the leather with rosewater. The meticulous cleaning of the silver spheres. History isn't just the big moments, it's the quiet, repetitive maintenance of the small things. The world of the 14th century was a world of layers. Layers of clothing, layers of stone, and layers of scent. As you lay there, feel those layers settling over you. One by one. The layer of the day is being peeled away. The layer of the evening is settling. And the final layer, the layer of sleep, is beginning to drift down. It is as soft as the silk cord of the pomander. It is as steady as the scent of the ambergris. The castle is quiet now. The pomanders have been laid on the bedside tables. The scented gloves are tucked into cedar chests. The aromatic shield is no longer needed. For in the darkness of sleep, there is no bad air. There is no noise. There is only the long, deep fragrance of the dream. Imagine the room filling with the scent of dried lavender, the ultimate herb of sleep. It is a dusty, purple scent. It calms the heart. It slows the breath. In and out. In and out. The lady is asleep. The knight is asleep. The apothecary has closed his shop. The silver ball is still. The spices are silent. Sleep now, protected by the memory of the rose. Sleep now, in the fortress of the scent. The world is far away. The shield is holding. And you are drifting, drifting, into the heart of the fragrant night. We have explored the physical rituals, the painting of the skin, the binding of the hair, and the shield of spices. But in the medieval mind, beauty was never just about what you saw in the mirror. It was a spiritual weight. A delicate, dangerous balance between the divine and the forbidden. To be beautiful was to be blessed, but to seek beauty too fervently was to walk a moral tightrope over the fires of vanity. Welcome to the quiet, contemplative, and heavy world of the moral tightrope. Close your eyes and imagine the interior of a great stone cathedral at dusk. The air is cool, and the shadows are long and blue. High above, the sunlight filters through stained glass, casting patches of ruby and emerald on the cold floor. In this world, beauty was a reflection of the Creator. A perfect face was seen as a sign of a perfect soul. But here lies the tension. If God gave you a face, who were you to change it? Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the stillness of the stone around you. Let the weight of your body sink into the bed, as if you are a statue resting in a quiet alcove. For the medieval woman, every morning at her dressing table was a conversation with her conscience. As she reached for the white lead or the cinnabar, she was aware of the eyes of the church. The preachers spoke of the devil's workshop in the jars of paint. They said that by changing your face, you were telling the heavens that their work was unfinished. Think of the boring, internal dialogue of the 14th century. The quiet, repetitive questioning. Is this blush a sign of my health, or a trap for my vanity? Is this golden hair a gift, or a sin of pride? The beauty ritual became a secret. A private, hushed performance. Imagine the lady sitting in her solar, the heavy wooden door closed against the world. She applies her creams in the silence, her movements slow and deliberate. Dip, rub, look. Dip, rub, look. She is not just preparing for a banquet, she is navigating her place in the universe. As you listen to my voice, imagine your own worries about the world's expectations being lifted away. You do not have to balance anything tonight. You do not have to be good or perfect. You only have to be still. There was a concept called God's livery. If you were born noble, you were expected to look noble. It was your duty to represent your rank with grace. And so, beauty became a requirement of office. Imagine the frustration of this paradox. You must be beautiful to honor your family, but you must be modest to honor your soul. You must wear the silk, but you must not love the silk too much. This is the boring history of the medieval mind. Not the Crusades, but the hours spent wondering if a silk veil was too transparent or if a hennin was too high. Think of the silence of the confessional, the low murmur of a voice through a wooden screen. Whisper, pause. Whisper, pause. A woman confessing the sin of plucking her eyebrows. A man confessing the pride of his pointed shoes. To us, it seems trivial. But in the quiet, dark nights of the Middle Ages, these were the questions that kept people awake. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the heavy, velvet curtains of the bed closing around you. They shield you from the judgments of the world. Inside this space, there is no tightrope. There is only the soft, level ground of rest. The medieval world was obsessed with the idea of the mirror of the soul. If you were angry, your face would turn red. If you were envious, it would turn green. And so, the closed-lip smile and the ghostly glow were not just fashions, they were attempts to show a soul that was perfectly calm, perfectly still. They were trying to look like they had already found the peace that you are searching for now. Feel your heart beating in a slow, steady rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. It is a clock that doesn't care about vanity. It only cares about life. The moral tightrope was a path of moderation. The ideal was to look like an angel without appearing to have tried. Sprezzatura, before the word was even invented. Imagine the skill required to spend 4 hours on your hair, only to cover it with a simple linen veil so that no one would know the effort you had made. It was a beauty of hidden depths. A beauty of secrets. This is the peace we find in the past. The realization that humans have always struggled with how they are seen. And yet, the sun still rose. The seasons still changed. The stone cathedrals still stood silent in the moonlight. As the night grows deeper, the moral questions begin to fade. In the darkness, everyone is the same. The lead-white skin and the sun-tanned skin are both hidden by the shadows. The silk and the wool feel the same against the skin in the dark. The tightrope is gone. The floor is wide and safe. The lady lays her head on her pillow. She has done her best to balance the world and the spirit. Now, she leaves it to the angels. The room is very quiet. The only light is the faint, silver glow of the moon on the floor tiles. The jars of paint are shut. The veils are folded. The conscience is at rest. As you sink into the depths of your own sleep, let go of the need to be anything at all. You are not a reflection in a mirror. You are not a moral calculation. You are a breathing, dreaming soul, safe in the heart of the night. Sleep now, where there are no judgments. Sleep now, where the soul is free. The tapestries are still. The candles are long gone. And you are drifting, drifting, into the heart of the most peaceful night. We have traveled a long way through the visual secrets of the medieval world, from the ghostly pallor of the skin to the hidden gold of the hair. But as we stand in the center of the great hall, we realize that the ultimate proclamation of status was not just on the face, but draped over the entire body. In the 14th century, fabric was not just a covering. It was a language, a slow, weaving story of lineage, power, and patience. Welcome to the heavy, silken, and silent world of the fabric of status. Close your eyes, and imagine you are standing in a high-ceilinged stone chamber. The air is cool, and the walls are covered in massive, colorful tapestries. Somewhere in the distance, there is the rhythmic, slow thud of a loom. Thud, click, thud. Thud, click, thud. This was the heartbeat of medieval wealth. Take a slow, deep, effortless breath. Feel your body becoming heavy against your bed, much like a thick velvet cloak being laid out on a table. In this world, your clothes told everyone exactly who you were before you even spoke. If you were a peasant, you wore hodden gray, a rough, scratchy wool that smelled of the fields. But if you were noble, your life was a long, repetitive encounter with silk, velvet, and the finest furs. Imagine the morning ritual of a noblewoman being dressed. This is not a quick task. It is a ceremony of layers. First comes the chemise. This is the innermost layer. A garment of pure, bleached white linen. It feels cool, almost cold, against the skin. The process of making this linen was a masterpiece of boring history. Flax plants grown in the mud, wet in water, beaten, dried, and spun by hand for months just to create one soft shirt. As you listen to my voice, imagine that cool linen touching your own skin. It is clean. It is smooth. It is the foundation of peace. Can you hear the sound of the fabric? When linen moves, it makes a soft, crisp rustle. SSSSHHH. SSSSHHH. This is the first sound of nobility. Over the chemise, the heavy silk or velvet gown is lowered. Think of the silk coming from Lucca, in Italy. It isn't like the light silk of today. It is thick. It is heavy. It catches the candlelight in its folds, making it look like the surface of a dark, midnight pond. And then, there is the velvet. Velvet was a miracle of the medieval loom. It was woven so slowly that a master weaver could only produce a few inches in a single day. Think of that. The garment you are wearing represents hundreds of days of human life, captured in thread. There is a profound peace in that thought. You are wearing time itself. Let your mind synchronize with that slow weaver. You have no deadlines. You have no rush. Your life, like the velvet, is being woven one thread at a time. Next comes the fur. Not for warmth, but for majesty. The edges of the gown are lined with ermine, the white fur of the winter stoat. Imagine how soft that fur is. If you were to run your fingers over it, it would feel like touching a cloud. Stroke, glide, softness. Stroke, glide, softness. In the medieval mind, the weight of the clothes was essential. A gown could weigh 20-30 pounds. When you wear this much fabric, you cannot run. You cannot be frantic. The clothes literally force you to be still. They force you to be graceful. This weight is what you feel now. Your legs are heavy. Your arms are heavy. You are a living statue, anchored to the bed by the sheer weight of your own relaxation. The colors of these fabrics were a story of their own. Deep, saturated blues from woad, or brilliant reds from madder and cochineal. These dyes took weeks to set. Imagine the great wooden vats in the dyer's shop. The fabric sitting in the liquid for days, absorbing the color until it reaches the very soul of the fiber. No one was in a hurry. You cannot rush a color. When a nobleman or lady walked through the stone corridors, their clothes made a rhythmic, hypnotic sound. The silk brushing against silk, the heavy velvet dragging across the stone floor. Swish, hush, swish. Swish, hush, swish. This sound is your lullaby. It is a steady, repeating loop that lulls the brain into a state of trance. In the boring reality of the castle, there were no new fashions every week. A gown might be worn for a decade. It was repaired, brushed, and cared for with obsessive detail. History is found in this slow maintenance. The brushing of the velvet, the pinning of the lace, the counting of the threads. Now, imagine the day is over. The sun has set, and the torches are low. The ceremony of dressing is reversed. One by one, the heavy gold brooches and pins are removed. Clink, tink, clink. They are placed in a velvet-lined box. The heavy gown is lifted away, and suddenly, the body feels incredibly light. As if you could float away from the floor. The weight of status is gone. The responsibility of rank is removed. You are back in the simple, white, cool linen. It is the fabric of rest. It is the fabric of the dream. The room is growing very dark. The heavy clothes are put away in large cedar chests. Between the folds, the maids have placed sprigs of dried lavender and sandalwood. Tomorrow, the status will be put back on. But for tonight, there is only the silence of the linen. There is only the softness of the bed. The loom has stopped its thudding. The weavers are asleep. The fabric of the world is still. Sleep now, wrapped in the invisible silk of the night. Sleep now, in the heavy velvet of the dark. The kingdom is quiet. The chests are closed. And you are drifting, drifting, into the heart of the most peaceful, most elegant night. We have explored the heavy silks and the status-defining velvets of the nobility, the fabrics that shouted of wealth and power. But as we move across the medieval landscape, toward the quiet, mist-covered valleys, we encounter a different kind of aesthetic. A world where beauty was found not in excess, but in the absolute absence of it. This is the contrast between the vibrant energy of the court and the silent, repetitive stone of the monastery. Welcome to the still, contemplative, and dual world of monasteries and courts. Close your eyes and imagine two paths stretching out before you. One path leads to the bright, colorful banners of a royal tournament, where the air is filled with the scent of roasted meats and the sound of trumpets. The other path leads to a narrow, arched doorway of gray granite, where the only sound is the rhythmic dripping of water in a stone courtyard. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the cool air of the monastery entering your lungs. It is crisp, clean, and smells of ancient dust and damp earth. In the court, fashion was a race. It was about the newest dye, the tallest hat, the longest train. But in the monastery, time stood still. A monk or a nun wore the same silhouette in the year 1200 that they would wear in the year 1400. This was boring history at its peak. A commitment to a lack of change. Imagine the habit of a Cistercian monk. It is made of undyed wool, a coarse, off-white fabric that feels heavy and rough to the touch. There are no jewels. No gold thread. No silk. Just the honest, repetitive texture of the sheep's coat. As you listen to my voice, imagine your own clothes turning into soft, heavy wool. It isn't itchy, but warm, solid, and grounding. It reminds you that you don't need to impress anyone tonight. You don't need to be trendy. You only need to be. Think of the silence of the cloister. The brothers move in a single file, their leather sandals making a soft, rhythmic slap hush on the stone floor. They do not speak. Their beauty is found in their posture, in their bowed heads, in their hands tucked into their wide sleeves. This was the aesthetic of the sacred. It was a beauty designed to disappear. But back at the court, the beauty was designed to be impossible to ignore. Imagine a feast in the great hall. The ladies are wearing party-colored gowns, one side bright scarlet, the other side deep emerald green. It is a visual puzzle. It is chaotic and exciting. The light of the torches dances off the gold embroidery, creating a flickering, hypnotic pattern on the walls. Flicker, sway. Flicker, sway. There is a tension between these two worlds. The noblewoman in her silks often looked toward the nun in her linen with a strange kind of envy. The envy of a soul that wants to be still. And the nun, perhaps, looked toward the court and wondered about the touch of silk against the skin. But tonight, we find the balance between them. We take the vibrancy of the court and we let it settle into the silence of the monastery. The bright reds and greens of the gowns begin to fade in your mind, turning into soft, muted shades of gray and cream. The loud music of the banquet becomes the low, vibrating hum of a Gregorian chant. It is a sound that has no beginning and no end. It is a circle of sound. It is a circle of peace. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the heavy, iron key turning in the lock of the monastery gate. Click, thud. The world of the court, with its fashions and its drama, is locked outside. Inside, there is only the shadow, the stone, and the scent of beeswax. The boring truth is that both the monk and the knight were searching for the same thing. They were searching for a sense of belonging in a vast, mysterious universe. One found it in the display of gold, the other found it in the display of nothing. Feel your own body finding its place in the universe now. You are the stone in the wall. You are the wool in the habit. You are the silence in the hall. The sun has long since set over both the castle and the abbey. In the dark, the silk of the queen and the wool of the monk are indistinguishable. The status is gone. The fashion is gone. There is only the breath. Imagine the lady laying her silk gown over a wooden chest, and the nun smoothing her linen wimple on a simple shelf. They both close their eyes. They both enter the same dream. The court is quiet. The monastery is still. The history of the day is written and closed. Sleep now, in the space between the sacred and the secular. Sleep now, in the shadow of the archway. The trumpets are silent. The bells have stopped tolling. And you are drifting, drifting, into the heart of the most ancient night. We have explored the towers of silk and the shields of spice, but as the night grows deeper, we must step into the most mysterious corner of the medieval chamber. This is the space where science and magic blurred, where the search for beauty became a search for the very essence of nature. Behind every pale face and every tinted lip, there was an alchemist's secret. Welcome to the quiet, flickering, and glass-clinking world of the alchemist's mirror. Close your eyes and imagine a small room tucked away in the shadows of a castle turret. The walls are made of cold, unhewn stone, but the air is warm with the glow of a small charcoal furnace. On the wooden shelves, rows of glass vials and ceramic jars sit in the silence, their labels written in a fading, elegant script. This is the apothecary's sanctuary, the birthplace of medieval beauty. Take a slow, deep, effortless breath. Feel the weight of your body settling into your bed, like a heavy stone settling at the bottom of a clear, still pond. In the 14th century, a woman's mirror was not just reflecting her image, it was reflecting the labor of the alchemist. Creating the tools of beauty was a boring, repetitive, and incredibly slow process. There were no factories. There were only hands and time. Think of the white lead we spoke of at the beginning. Imagine the alchemist sitting by his fire, watching the lead plates interact with the fumes of bitter vinegar. Drip, hiss, drip. He has to wait weeks for the white crust to form. It is a lesson in patience. He does not rush the chemistry. He lets the season do the work. As you listen to my voice, imagine that same patience entering your own mind. You do not need to hurry towards sleep. You do not need to force the night. You only need to wait and let the chemistry of rest do its work. The alchemist's mirror also revealed the secret of aqua rosa, the rose water. Imagine a copper still, the alembic, sitting over a low flame. Inside, thousands of red rose petals are submerged in spring water. As the water heats, the steam rises, carrying the soul of the rose with it. It travels through a long, coiled glass tube, cooling and turning back into liquid, drop by drop. Tink, tink, tink. It takes an entire afternoon to fill one small bottle. The scent fills the room, a heavy, sweet, floral fog that makes the senses drift. This water was the base for everything, the washes, the creams, the potions for the eyes. Think of that slow, rhythmic dripping. Let it be the rhythm of your own breathing. In and out. In and out. Each breath is a drop of peace. But the mirror also held darker secrets. The alchemist worked with minerals pulled from the deepest veins of the earth. Antimony for the eyes, cinnabar for the lips, and arsenic for the skin. Imagine the grinding of the minerals. The stone mortar and pestle, moving in endless, circular motions. Scrape, rotate, scrape. The sound is dry and dusty. It is the sound of the earth being turned into art. The alchemist would mix these powders with the fat of a sheep or the oil of a pressed almond. He would stir it with a silver spoon until the texture was as smooth as the silk of a queen's veil. It had to be perfect. If there was one grain of grit, the mask would crack. If the oil was too thin, the beauty would fade. This is the boring history of the laboratory. The hours spent stirring, the hours spent waiting for a mixture to cool, the hours spent watching the moon move across the sky as a potion thickened. As you drift closer to sleep, imagine the still, dark liquids in those glass jars. They are cooling now. Their work is done. The alchemist also looked to the stars. He believed that certain oils should only be mixed under a full moon, or that a cream would be more effective if prepared while a specific planet was rising. This added another layer of slow to the process. You couldn't just make a cream when you wanted it, you had to wait for the universe to be ready. Think of the stillness of that waiting. Standing on a stone balcony, looking at the stars, waiting for the right moment to begin. There is a peace in knowing that the people of the past lived by these cosmic rhythms. They weren't fighting time, they were dancing with it. Feel your own body dancing with the rhythm of the night. The sun is gone. The stars are in their places. The universe is ready for you to rest. In the lady's chamber, she looks into her mirror. It is a disc of polished silver or steel. It doesn't give a perfect reflection like glass, it gives a soft, watery, dreamlike image. She sees her face, not as it is, but as the alchemist has allowed it to be. A construction of rosewater, lead, and moonlight. The alchemist's mirror reminds us that we are all a collection of elements. We are water, and mineral, and starlight. And tonight, all those elements are coming to a state of perfect, heavy rest. The furnace in the turret has burned down to a pile of gray ash. The glass vials are cool to the touch. The silver spoons are laid on the wooden bench. The alchemist has closed his heavy, leather-bound book. The secrets are locked away for another day. As you sink deeper into your pillow, imagine the scent of the rose water fading into the scent of the night. It is the smell of old stone, of cold air, and of deep, dark peace. The laboratory is silent. The mirror is covered with a cloth. The chemistry of the day is over. Sleep now, in the quiet of the potion. Sleep now, in the stillness of the glass. The stars are watching. The world is a dream. And you are drifting, drifting, into the heart of the alchemist's most silent night. We have traveled through the long, silent corridors of time, from the ghostly white skin of the morning to the heavy, scented veils of the night. We have seen the towers of silk, the poisoned palates of the alchemists, and the quiet, guarded smiles of a world long gone. But now, as the final candles flicker in our story, we must return to the present, carrying with us only the echoes. Welcome to the final, fading, and infinitely peaceful world of echoes of the past. Close your eyes one last time, and imagine you are standing at the edge of a great, ancient forest at midnight. Behind you, the stone ruins of a castle stand silent under the moon. The tapestries have long since turned to dust, the gold has been buried, and the voices of the knights and ladies have become nothing more than the rustle of the leaves in the wind. Take a very slow, very deep breath. Feel your chest rise, and as you exhale, let go of every single word we have spoken tonight. You don't need to remember the lead, or the silk, or the bells. You only need to feel the weight of the history. In this final hour, we realize that the boring history of the past is actually the history of ourselves. The same desire for peace, the same search for beauty, the same rhythmic patterns of life that sustain them, sustain us. Imagine the sound of a distant bell, echoing across a valley that has seen 1,000 winters. Bong. 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 The sound is so slow that you almost forget the first strike before the second one arrives. This is the pace of the past. This is the pace of your sleep. As you listen to my voice, imagine the medieval world slowly dissolving into mist. The high foreheads, the painted veins, the towering hats, they are all turning into shadows. They are becoming part of the earth again. There is no more work to be done. No more plucking, no more grinding, no more weaving. The looms are silent. The mortars and pestles are still. The mirrors are dark. Think of the boring silence of a museum at night. The objects sit in their glass cases, dreaming of the hands that once held them. They are at peace. They are no longer part of the rush of the world. You are like one of those objects now. Safe, protected, and utterly still. The echoes of the past tell us that nothing is ever truly lost. The scent of lavender we use today is the same scent that filled the linen chests of a duchess in 1420. The feeling of a cool sheet against the skin is the same feeling a monk had in his cell. We are connected to them by these small, repetitive, boring sensations. Let your mind drift over the landscape we have covered. See the pale glow of the sun on the castle walls one last time. See the blue rivers of the veins. See the golden hair catching the light of a single tallow candle. Now, watch as that candle is snuffed out. Shh! The smoke rises in a thin, silver line, twisting and turning until it vanishes into the darkness. Your breathing has become a whisper now. In and out. In and out. You are sinking deeper into the history of the earth. Beneath the layers of stone, beneath the roots of the trees, into the deep, quiet bedrock of sleep. The medieval world was a world of waiting. Waiting for the harvest, waiting for the messenger, waiting for the dawn. And tonight, you have finished your waiting. The messenger has arrived, and his message is peace. Imagine the lady we followed through these 20 chapters. She is no longer a masterpiece of artifice. She is just a woman, asleep in a room that smells of wood smoke and old roses. Her face is relaxed. Her hands are open. She is free from the moral tightrope. She is free from the poisoned palate. She is you, and you are her. The castle is silent. The monastery is silent. The alchemist's turret is silent. The history has ended, but the dream is just beginning. As you drift into the final darkness, feel the immense, heavy, and comforting weight of time. It is a blanket that covers the whole world. It is a blanket that covers you. The echoes of the past are fading now. The voices are whispers. The whispers are sighs. The sighs are silence. There are no more chapters. There are no more words. Just the rhythm of the night. Thump, thump, thump. The stars are cold and bright. The moon is a silver coin. The world is a memory. Sleep now, in the heart of the echo. Sleep now, in the center of the still. The story is told. The journey is over. And you are drifting, drifting, drifting into the deep, dark, and infinitely beautiful, ancient night. Good night.